It's Conor here at IESE, running a program here on the 5th floor of North Campus of IESE. And what I wanted to talk about today, an idea that I took from a Chinese Malaysian professor that I was teaching together with, George. And when I was in Washington, I heard these words from George. And he said, "Listen to the teaching, not to the teacher." And this hit me hard. Very often in my life, I'm so aware of who the person is, whether the person is a valid teacher, whether they're credible, whether I'm impressed by them, whether they've got experience. And I'm so focused on who is the teacher that I don't hear the teaching. And sometimes a very valuable teaching, a very valuable idea, something I need to learn, comes from a source that maybe I wouldn't necessarily listen to. And I wrote that down at the beginning of my time in Washington, and for the last week and a half I've been reflecting, how often have I ignored really valuable lessons because they came from a source that I just struggled to hold credible. And I've sort of committed, how do I listen to the teaching and not to the teacher? How do I take the lessons from wherever I can find them and not just focus on who are the inspiring leaders that can teach me, but learn from everywhere? So the reflection that I wanted to share with you is a bit this idea of take the lessons wherever you can get them, whether it's from a child, whether it's from someone you meet in a cafe. Take the lessons wherever you can. Listen to the teaching, not the teacher. Another idea that comes to mind as I talk about this is, I was once told that when someone gives you advice, don't evaluate the advice on the quality of the advice. Evaluate it on the quality of the life of the person who's giving you the advice. And I was thinking, how does this contrast or engage or correspond to this idea of take the teaching wherever you can get? And I think one thing is a lesson, another is advice. And I think for advice, it's very important that the person sharing the advice with you really understands who you are and what you're aiming for. So advice is a different thing than a lesson. Advice is a different thing than a teaching. A teaching is something that you're going to apply and look for how you apply it in your own life. Advice is someone telling you something you should do. And if someone's going to give you advice, the first thing you do need to look at is it working for them in their life? Is it having a measurable impact positively in how their life has been in terms of what they intend to achieve and what they're getting? And the second part of advice is, do they know you? Have they taken the time to understand you, what motivates you? In Vistage, before we let anyone share advice, we make sure we take time for them to ask questions about who are you? What's important to you? What are you looking to achieve here? What else do we need to know? And I think if someone's going to give you advice, there's two things you want to look at. One, is their own life well lived? Is their own life worthy of emulation? And second, have they taken an effort to get to know you, what's important to you, where you're going, what's important to you at this time? And if those two elements aren't there, advice, push it away. But teachings, lessons you can take anywhere. So reflection here for you this week. Listen to the teaching, not the teacher. When you're given advice, take it when you see two things. One, the quality of life of the person giving the advice is worthy of emulation. And second, they've made an effort to understand what's important to you, what you're trying to achieve. If their life is not worthy of emulation and if they've not taken the time to get to know you, listen to the advice, but do not immediately assume that it's going to be of value to you. So again, Conor from IESE, have a great week. Hope you're well. Thank you for your likes, your subscribes, your comments, your questions. Keeps me inspired and keep making these videos. So heading back into our classroom here. See you next week.